You alright guys, welcome to another video. We're down here at Teardrop Lakes in Milton Keynes. I'm on Lake 2 at the minute, Peg 14, which is right next to the little car park and the bridge there. I don't know if you can see that. I was going to go onto Lake 4, but there's a few people setting up on there. I think we've got one person on here, but I just didn't see anything. So we're on this little spot here because, to be fair, I've seen so many carp around here all the time. So yeah, hopefully gonna get to pinch one of them out, but not gonna waste any more time. Gonna get set up and start fishing. Just gonna be PVA bag fishing today. We've only got a few hours, so it's a little bit rushed and on today. So right, back within a minute. Just gonna be fishing with the one rod today, guys. Just keeping it simple and easy. I walk down here, so it doesn't take me long, but it's nice not to carry too much stuff. You're going to do stuff like trying to get yourself a nice lightweight chair like this one. It weighs absolutely nothing and fantastic for the job. Try and get set up as quickly as you can and get in the water now. When you're on a quick session like this and you're just trying to get everything done nice and quickly and get in the water, pre-preparing at home is a massive key thing. I mean, if you just look here, I've made myself up plenty of PVA bags, solid PVA bags, which we're going to be doing today. And it just makes it that easier and quicker once you get down here, just to get in the water and actually get fishing, you know. Quite simple. I attach these guys. I just use the stem, which I'll show you more in the video from the house, and I literally just tie it on with a half blood knot. Get the old grasses out, getting old. Yeah, as simple as that, nice and easy. And then all we need to do is just tap down the corners of our bag, get that all tightened up. And then we're going to get our bank stick set up. Okay guys, just give you a bit more of a look where we are. That goes up there into the big body of the lake, and obviously this is the more narrow a bit. Can't talk. Just comes along there, and if we carried on up there, we'd meet the little bridge, and we're fishing just in that little alcovey bit there. Well, say we, just me, but it always feels like us when I'm talking to you. I'm just in there, just the one rod, just down there. Actually forgot my bobbin today in the rush to get out, but if you ever do that, don't worry, just use a little stick or something like that, as long as it holds fine. But yeah, it's actually not a bad day out here today. It's actually reasonably warm. It's quite nice. So I've got to get settled in here for a bit. Hopefully we'll see something or get something. PVA bag fishing. Why have I chose to do it today? Why do I think it's a good method? Let's have a look at a few things. Well, I do think it's a fantastic method all year round, and I do use it quite often, to be fair. I think it's a really nice way to put a amount of bait in an area very, very accurately without having to spam or pile loads of crap out there. You know, when you just want a small amount of bait in one area, I really think it's a really good way of doing that. For example, you know, just using the very small PVA bags, you can make them real small, and you know, you can get lots of good stuff in there. Now I know people say, oh, you know, you do that with the stockings and things like that. Yes, you do, but you know, with the solid PVA bags, I just think you can put a lot of smaller stuff in there, and like, you know, a lot more powders, like ground up boilies and things like that. You know, where to keep them inside the stocking, you'd probably have to make it up more like a stick mix, you know. It gives us that benefit as well. And I really like the way that, you know, the way I do mine is I have the lead inside, the lead, the rig, the bait, everything all inside one little tiny parcel, which just sort of explodes out on the bottom of the lake. And I just think it looks fantastic, you know, just enough for a mouthful or two down there. And as I say, you can get it very, very accurate, which I really like. As I say, I don't think there's a certain time of year where I think it does better. I think it's a great method to use all year round. So that's one of the reasons. So that's a few of the reasons why I like using it. You know, the accuracy, getting it out there, and stuff like that. You know, and there's multiple different size bags that you can use, and things like that. But let's have a little look now at what I actually like putting in the PVA bags, because there's a few different types of baits that I like to use. There's a few I probably wouldn't use. You know, I certainly, you know, and I know some people do. That's absolutely fine. But for myself, I definitely wouldn't be using sort of big 20 millers, 25 millers and boilies in there and stuff like that. I want something quite small and light. It's going to get picked up easy and sucked up into the carp's mouth, you know. So that's the way I look at it, more like that. But let's have a good look at some of the hook baits right now that I would use. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at some of the hook baits that we might put on our rigs in the PVA bag and just talk through a few of them, really. I mean, this is a small piece of a wafter, whatever you like to call it. But yeah, that's just a small one of them which I've just really trimmed down. And the idea of trimming it down really is, you know, one, it gives it a bit of a different shape. It just makes it that little bit smaller, and it's still nice, ultralight. It's going to fly up in the mouth there. The same again here. This is just another little wafter, just trimmed down into a different little shape. It's going to blend in with the pellet quite well, fly up there. This is a little piece of pop-up. Literally just a small piece of pop-up which I've just cut down, chopped it in half and trimmed off all the sides. You can see there. Again, you know, it gives it a nice little shape and stops it from being too ultra buoyant, because I wouldn't want actually a whole pop-up in my bag. I wouldn't want it popping right out and almost leaving the bag behind, or either just pinging out completely. So yeah, just trim down so it just sits on the top there, or just floats around slightly just above, you know, like this, not like pinned up here. This is just a little fake pellet, a little rubber pellet, and you know, stuff like that. The choices are endless. I mean, you can see here we've got some little casters, or we've got corn maggots, all different bits and pieces, and you know, different colours and stuff like that. We've got some blacks, whites, glow in the darks. We've got some worms there, all different sizes. You know, as you can see here, we've got some larger ones there, but got some real small ones there as well. You could put a couple of them on there. They would really blend in well with the pellets in the bags. But yeah, you know, I keep quite a good selection of this sort of stuff with me pretty much all the time. And I'll use this in solid PVA bags, and sometimes I'll just use it with a bag of pellet or just as a bait. But yeah, I think that sort of covers that. That's the sort of stuff I want to go for. I wouldn't go in there with a 22 mil boilie or anything like that. I want to keep it very small, very light, but not too buoyant that it's going to pop right off the bottom and away from your bag. So that's a quick look at some of the hook baits that we might be able to use in our solid PVA bags. We're not just talking about hook baits now. Obviously, there's also the powder that we put into the bag, the different types of pellets that we can use, and things like this. So, you know, let's have a quick look at that as well. Okay, let's look at some of the stuff that we would fill the bag up with. Now, I always like to have a pellet mix and a powdered mix. Reason being is I like to put a little bit of the powder mix and start with, just to cover up the hook, then some pellet, then some more powder, and so on until the bag's filled. That way, when you're tapping it, the powder's falling through and filling up all the gaps in between the pellet. For this time of year where it's that bit colder as well, I'd like to go for just one type of pellet, very small, you know, not oily at all. And it's literally 2 mil pellet, just coarse pellet, no oils or massive flavours on there. It's just quite basic stuff, but it works very, very well. In this pot, I've literally just got a load of ground up boilies, so it's just boilie crumb in here today. I've took a few different types of boilies, most of them quite fruity and nutty. Literally grinded them up and they go in there. Sometimes this I'll I'd sometimes use some chili powder or some milk powder or protein, things like that. And like you can mix them in with your boilie mix as well. Crushed hemp's a good one to mix in there as well. What I would avoid personally is ground bait. Sometimes I've noticed that can get real sort of stodgy and thick in the bottom there and stop breaking away so much. So I tend to steer away from ground bait when it comes to PVA bags. But have a little experiment, get plenty of flavours in there. That's the idea of it. I mean, I just like lots of different flavours in there. If you're looking at this, it's not mass chunks of food. It is a tractor. Those are the tractor. And then once your bags are filled up, you could and all ready to go to cast out, you could add a bit of liquid. Never put the liquid in before you're ready to cast out, though, guys. Always save that till the end. But yeah, that's the sort of closer look at them. That's what I'd generally fill the bag with. So we've got our pellets now, we've got our powders, and we've got our hook bait. But what are we going to attach these hook baits to? Let's have a quick look through now at what type of rigs that I use here. There's a few different types of rigs that I've used for the PVA bag fishing. I'm not saying every time I go out I take 4 or 5 different rigs with me. That is not the case all the time. Occasionally it is, but there is a few go-to ones that I'll use for different hook baits and things like that. So let's have a quick look at them and how I put them together. Okay, guys, for this next one, what we're going to do is we took a piece of coated braid and I've completely stripped the coating off it all together. Okay, and we're just going to tie a basic loop knot in the bottom here to create our hair. Again, as always, guys, if you're unsure of any of the knots that we use in these videos, don't worry. There's dedicated videos just to that on the page. Just trim off the edge. Okay. And we're just going to slip on a tiny little bit of silicone tubing. Okay, just thread it around there like so. Through the back of the hook. And we start whipping down to form this knot. Back through the back of the hook again. Wetting that up and tightening it down. And then we take our kicker. Thread our kicker down. Always good if the end of the hook's wet when you're trying to get this on, guys. Okay, what we're going to do is tie a loop in the top here. And after you've done that knot, trim off the edge there. And then that's basically it, guys. You can see that it's a very short rig. I have no towel rubber on the end here, anti-tangle sleeve, because it's going to be in the PVA bag. But that's the basic for it. Okay, guys, to start this one off, I took a section of coated braid, which I've completely stripped off. We're going to take the hook and we're going to bring the line braid through the front of the hook and lay this end down the back as if we was making a hair or D section, okay? But we're not going to. Then we're just going to whip down the back and start forming this knot. Then we're going to come back through the back of the hook like so. Moisten that up and tightening that knot right in there, okay? Then what we're going to do is we're going to take our kicker, thread the kicker onto the braid like so. So your little twisted ends upwards. Make sure the end of the hook's nice and wet here. This will help with putting on the kicker. Slide that on there. And that little tag that you've got out the back there, we can just cut that off. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a screw, slide the screw onto the hook like so. And then we're going to take our hook bead or stop, and we're just going to thread that on to the hook, stop that screw falling off. And then we're just going to come to the other end up here, and this is where we'll tie our figure-of-8 loop knot. Again, if you're unsure about this knot, guys, really don't worry. We have a video dedicated just to this knot. Moist up again. and just trim it off. And there you go. Perfect. Lovely little rig. You can make these a bit shorter. Sometimes I'll bounce them down just a little bit, make it a little bit shorter. But yeah, perfect for your PVA bag, I would say. Okay, guys, to start this next one off, what we're going to do is take a piece of coated braid, which I stripped the coating off completely. We're going to come through the front of the hook, laying the little strand down the back there. It's going to whip down, making the knot this knot, then come back through the back of the hook. Moisten up as you tighten up, get that knot right in there. Like so. And we're just going to place that aside for a second, because what we're going to do now, we're going to take a little D kicker and I'm just going to thread the screw onto it, just like so. There's a few different ways you can put these on, but this is the way I'm going with today. So I'm just going to thread the bottom piece on first, the little hook bit there. So that's going to come straight over there. And we're going to bring this section up. We're going to thread our braid through it, like so. Okay, then we're going to pull that a bit tighter. Wetting up the back of the hook there. Slipping that kicker on. There'll be a little tiny bit of braid hanging out there. Don't worry about that. We can just trim that off. Once you've trimmed that off, you should be left with something that looks kind of like that. And as always, we're just going to go up to the top here and just tie our loop on the end here. Be a figure of 8 loop knot. Trim off the edges. And there we go, a lovely little rig there. We haven't got a towel rubber on it because it's going to go in a PVA bag. This is probably the maximum length I would make one, maybe shorten it down to here even. So I'm travelling really light today, going to be moving around the lakes, but I also walked here and will be walking home. So let's just have a look at some of the equipment that we use when travelling light. I only brought the one rod with me today, so nice and easy. Still got a nice sized landing net. It's not my 50-inch. Gone down to the 42-inch trekker with the breakdown pole. So that snaps in half, so it goes real nice and small. Coupled up here with a nice little fold up cradle, nice and soft and light, with the sling there as well. I've got a real lightweight chair and then just one bag. That is literally the whole kit, guys. Yeah, just easy to get about and do what we've got to do without absolutely killing ourselves or getting completely drenched in sweat and not feeling very comfortable. Yeah, I can move around a lot of this gear. It's pretty good. So remember, if you are coming out for these short little sessions, don't bring the whole house. I'm absolutely terrible for it, guys. I bring way too much all the time normally, but trying to get more and more used to just breaking it down, just trying to break it down to a lot less stuff at the moment, really. So, and it does work out a lot better. So yeah, that's what we're bringing down here at the moment. So that's pretty cool. All right, guys. Well, we've been here for a little while now in this swim, and nothing's come about at all. To be fair, I thought I'd see a couple of bits moving when I first got here, but that hasn't happened since. So it's looking real dead and a bit quiet on this bit. We don't have loads of time today, so don't want to waste it just sat here. So what we're going to do is pack stuff down a little bit, not completely, but just enough to manoeuvre around the place. And I think we're going to head over to Lake One. We're going to have a look at what's over there and, go from there, really. So, yeah, what I'm going to do now then is I'll get this stuff packed down. I'll get moved over there. Why don't you, whilst I'm doing that, look at the different lead arrangements that I like to use and how I attach the rigs to the lead. Speak to you in a bit. Okay, now we're going to have a look at leads and what sort of leads we would use in our solid PVA bags and how we'd go about attaching them. Now, this is quite a good lead, really. It's a little bit on the large side at 3.5 ounces, but, that's the maximum I would ever go for one. I generally like an ounce, ounce and a half, and then upwards. But, this is probably something I'd rather put into a large solid bag, but it'd be perfectly fine for the demonstration. Now, it's the perfect shape really for what I like. This is a flat pair. Any weight really with a good flat side on it, so it sort of sits there like this instead of rolling over. I mean, let me just show you some of the other leads that you can get inline leads. Obviously, if this was on a ledge or something like that, quite easily roll over the stuff and then get your rig sort of caught underneath it. And that's definitely what you don't want. By using a flat one, you've got less chance of it moving around, which I really like and think is obviously the best idea. Right, how do we go about attaching it? When you get your flat leads, they're going to have a little stem inside them like this. I just tap that out and then I replace it with one of these stems. Now, there's multiple different ways that you can do this. Some people use lead core, some people use other bits and pieces, but I like using these. I mean, some people use big like towel rubbers on the end. As I say, this works really nice for me. That just goes in there like so, and then you'd get the rig that you want with the little loop in the end, and you're literally feeding the loop through there. And you're just going to take your hook afterwards and then feed itself back through itself. So simple sort of loop to loop fashion. Just feed that over there, and that's going to come down beautifully and just stop there like so, you know. And that for me is absolutely brilliant. And then on this end here, you can see we've got like this little bit here. Then that would be tied straight to the main line, and that would be done. That way I can have plenty of these already tied up inside solid PVA bags for when I get to the lake, and I'm literally just snipping my line and tying the next one straight back on with this bit here, which for me is perfect. It's very quick, it's very easy. Lots of pre-prepping can be done, so you haven't got to do it all at the bank. You can get your rod straight out nice and fast. But yeah, that's the leads I like to use. As I say, this would be the maximum size. I would go down to sort of a 1 and 1.5 where I can, especially in the smaller bags. And that's how I like to attach my rig, and I'll tie my main line straight onto there. Lovely stuff. Okay, guys, so this is the swim we moved to on Lake 1. Not a bad little swim at all, quite like it. It's on the far side, so away from the towpath. Unfortunately, the original sound got cut off of this bit, so I'm having to do a voiceover, and I hope that works out well. But yeah, not a bad swim at all. I quite like it on this bit. If you can just see that tree there, I just literally casted out the rod over there. When I arrived, I see a bit of movement around there. In the reeds by the edge there was a couple of ducks, but it was definitely a fish just off from there. If you look down further that end, that's where the narrow bit goes. So I am actually in the bowl end of the lake. But yeah, there was a fair bit of movement there, so I sort of stuck the rod down there. That's about all I can say about this at the moment. Right, guys. Well, we've moved swim again. Back on Lake 2 now, swim 29, which is on the opposite side of the lake to what we was before and slightly further down towards the bowl area, but not completely. I'll give you a pan around of it in a minute. Why did we move again after having some noise? Well, we had that first knock just after the bag went in, which I explained could have been the bag or a fish moving around there. And I did have a few more knocks after that, but just single bleeps on the buzzer. No like knocking off the rod or anything like that. So we could also just put that down to maybe smaller fish swimming through the area, smaller fish attacking the pellet because the bags have very small pellet in there and a lot of crumb. So when you're very short on time and moving about, you've got to take stuff like that into consideration. And, you know, sorry, I thought I see something. And the factor is that I didn't see any carp action over there or any carp moving after that. So, you know, and it was sort of an hour that went past, no movement, no bleeps, no nothing. It was definitely time to get on my feet. Now, if I was here for longer or if I stayed the night or something like that, then maybe I'd have proceeded to kept on, maybe I'd have kept on going at that area. And, you know, generally I'd probably have had 2 rods here, but I'm not. The idea of today was moving around, trying to find the fish, keep active on a very limited time. Like, we don't have much time left, probably a couple of hours. So I'm probably going to fish this swim for a little while, see if we can get anything out of it, and then move on to Lake 4 on the way home. And that's the sort of plan from here. And we're just going to continue, keep watching the water, looking for fish. I mean, this is what it's really about, guys. You know, this type of fish is keeping active, looking for the fish, trying to get on top of them. You know, we're not setting up base camp and just sitting here like we're going to stay the night. So that brings us up to speed where we are at the second. So we've had a look at the rigs and the hook baits that we use and the lead systems and stuff like that. Let's have a look at what bags we actually use and how I actually put them together. There's lots of different ways to do this, absolute tons, and I have done loads of different ones through the years. This one I've been using all the time now for the last few years. I really like it. It's a good one. Okay, so when it actually comes to making a bag, for quite a while now, I've really liked the Fox PVA bags and loader. Take our loader, I'm just gonna give that a little squeeze so you can get the collar over. Just like that. Then we're going to take one of our PVA bags. Let's get the bag, give it a good sort of, I'm not stretching it here, guys. I'm literally just making sure it's nice and open, okay? And then we're going to put the loader inside there. Take the sleeve off. And that just stays on there very nicely like so. So what I'm going to do then is take a little bit of our boilie crumb mix. We're going to take our rig, which is attached to our lead. Get that little rig sat down in there like so. And then we're going to take just a little bit more crumb. So that's all covered up. Then we're going to get some pellet. This way we can start moving stuff about properly. Want to make sure that's looking good. Bit more pellet on there. And then we're going to get a bit more powder. And this is where you've got to start tapping it, guys, you know. So we've basically got powder, pellet, powder. Our rig should be sat right down the bottom here, and we've got the lead weight here. And I don't know if you can really see that, but it's slightly more over to this side. So hopefully it'll lay down nicely there, and I can just see my bait just there. Okay, and we're going to start tapping. And what this is going to do is just going to help move everything about a little bit. The pellet, you can see that there. It gets that moving through there real nicely. And then what we're going to do is we just twist that around like so. Make sure there's nothing left in that bit. And then you're going to lick all the way around this bit here. And then you're just going to push it through nicely like so. And look at that for a little pile of goodness. I mean, not tons and tons of food. I mean, that's a nice parcel of food, but there's not tons of it there. And it's all small items. It just should get hoovered up. Then what we're going to do, just to make it that little bit better, is we're going to get the corners like so. We're just going to give them a tap, pulling that corner right out like that. And then we're just going to wet that, stick that over like that. And we'll repeat the same this side, constantly tapping, and we'll just stick it over. And yeah, that's one beautiful solid bag. You know, if I wanted to add some liquid to that just before casting out, I'd probably punch a little tiny hole here and just squirt some in there. So we've covered the basis now of the rigs that I like to use, how I make them, the baits I use, and how I put the bags together and what goes into them bags. So you can swap and change this up all the time. You can use different liquids, different powders, stuff like that. Like this is just to give you a rough guideline of what I do. I change it up sometimes as well, you know, different ingredients. Sometimes it just depends what's in the box. But I'm hoping this is going to give you a sort of ballpoint of how you can do this type of fishing, keep active, keep moving, and get a nice presentation of bait down there. Today, I'm just using the small PVA bags. They do multiple different sizes, and there's so many different brands out there. You know, have a look, find one that works for you, one that you enjoy using, and the right size. You know, I generally bring out the large. If I'm going on a long trip, then I'll generally always have some large in my bag and some small. The larges are nice if you just want to get a nice little area of bait down there, nice and quick. And it's good for just getting that bit more out there. I really like the small ones, especially this time of year when it's a bit colder. You know, don't like to put too much bait in the water at one time, so that really helps with that. And plus, if I really wanted to sort of belt it out there a bit, you know, they're definitely going to fly a lot better than the big ones, if you know what I mean. Another little tip I can give you for them, like in the winter time, we want the sort of faster melting ones. The real cold water can really slow down the way they melt and stuff like that. So I like to use fast melting bags in the winter time and slow melting bags in the summertime. This helps to guarantee the fact that they get to the lake, and also the slow melting ones I don't find dissolve quite as quickly on my hands when they're hot in the summertime, when you get a little bit sweaty. So that's some good points. Although, if I'm fishing an incredibly deep lake, say something over 15-foot marker, then I'd always be using the slow melting bags just to get it through the water. Sometimes with a lake over 15 foot, a fast melting bag will dissolve before it gets to the bottom there, and then your stuff is just sort of spraying out halfway down. Who even knows how that rig's landing, which isn't a good thought, is it? So I say anything with a good depth on it, always slow melting bags. But, you know, on a general, if you're just fishing a lake, you know, maybe 9 foot or under, you know, during the summertime, I'd switch to slow melting, wintertime, fast melting. That's just my personal preference. As I say, give it a go, guys. See what you think. Stick in the comments. What do you like to do? What's your favourite PVA bags and stuff like that? You know, it'd be great to know and hear what you guys think of it. Like, do many of you get out and do it? You know, there's so many different ways that we can carp fish nowadays is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I'd love to know if many people still use the solid PVA bag. For any of you that haven't been down to Teardrops before, these are lovely, lovely little lakes. There's 4 of them here. You're only allowed to fish 3, number 1, 2 and 4. I have another video on my YouTube channel, so if you haven't seen that, go and have a look at that after this one. Don't stop this one, watch this one first, then go and watch that one, and that will give you a bit more information and stuff like that about the place. I don't want to go into it loads on this and just be repeating the last video, but yeah, go and check that one out, because that's a pretty good video, and it gives you lots of information for parking, whereabouts it's situated and things like that. But just a quick heads up, you can fish this on the MKAA book, or you can just come down here and buy a day ticket off of anyone. A day ticket's £8. You're only allowed to fish with 2 rods, and if you stay overnight, then that's £16. But I think that's enough information on the lakes for this video, because as I say, we have got one that's much more dedicated to giving that information over. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, go and check that out after this one. It's really worth a watch. Guys, well, just finished that bit of filming, and I let me pan the camera. It seems to have stopped now, but I just finished that bit of filming, sat down to have a bite to eat, and tons of bubbling just come up around here. So literally just got the rod straight back in and gone straight back out with another PVA bag straight on top of it, and it was really landed well. So really hopeful guys. But yeah, we'll check back in a minute, hopefully with a big fat one. Well, I've moved again, we're up on lake 4 now. This is the swim we're in now. I'm not sure what number it is actually, it's left, but we're right next to the little sluicey bit there. But yeah, I'm honest with you, we're losing light quite a bit now. I can't get the tripod to stand up here because the mud is so sloppy. Right, basically we are starting to lose light now. Still had no fish. Then bubbles did happen a few times on the last break, which was really cool, but nothing come of it. But that's just the way it is. Let's try and get a better look at the lake. This is like the last little hee-ho, the last go at it. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to try and concentrate on the fishing now for the next half hour or so, because say light's going, it's getting cold, and we was on limited time. So if nothing else comes out, this will be a goodbye, and thank you very much for watching once again. Do always appreciate it. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment, man, if you've got any questions about it or anything you want to talk about what's happening in the film. But yeah, thank you guys so much, and see you in the next one, unless I'll catch a fish and you'll see me very soon. Stay safe, stay positive, keep fishing, guys. Life's better on the bank.